In part one of this particular part, we saw that God never attempts to prove He exists. He's simply in the beginning God. He doesn't prove it, doesn't try to argue it. And I've made a couple of statements that when the moment you try to prove it, oh, I can prove God exists, you've already lost the battle. You've lost it already. Somebody comes up and says, how can you prove that God is real? Or how can you believe that God, created? Well, a good comeback would be, well, how do you know matter existed? How do you know God existed? Same way you know matter existed. They believe in eternal matter that came together, exploded, and from cold, dead matter, life evolved. We believe God always exists. So if they say prove that God exists, prove to me that matter existed, eternally. Then we also saw last week, or week before, it's not what God could have done. Because, the question comes up somewhat frequently, could God have used evolution? And as I explained then, He could have done anything He wanted to. He could have. It's not what He could have done, it's what He did. Could I climb up on top of this building and jump off? I could. My wife is saying she won't take care of me again. But I could. But did I? Just because I could doesn't mean I did. And God is very clear. God said, God said, God said, let there be light, let there be grass, let there be trees. God said it. So it's not what He could have done, it's what He said He did. I know some of you have heard me talk about one of my uncles. He was such a pathological liar. If he came in the door and you could see smoke behind him, and he said the annex is on fire, I would send somebody back to check it before we exited. Even if I saw smoke and he said the building's on fire, he is such a liar. Well, he was. He was such a liar that you just didn't believe anything he said. He went to Vietnam back during that era, and he came back and he was talking about all the stuff he did in Vietnam and all of the things he accomplished and all the things that he did. And my dad did some checking, and he spent most of the time in the brig in Vietnam. Didn't see battle, didn't win any battles. He spent most of his time in the brig. Is it jail? Is it brig in the still? Okay. He spent most of his time in the brig, but he could tell the best stories of what he did, how he killed so many, enemy, and how he, every word of it was a lie. God cannot lie. God said, let there be, and it was. Now, picking up and still thinking of what is involved in our world view after its kind. Now, to understand this and to really grasp this, you have to understand the difference between evolution and variation. Evolution is changing from one group to another group. or as some people refer to it, molecules to man. You know, you got this somehow in this explosion that all the planets and stars, you know, when it exploded, matter came together, they stuck together, and then out of cold, dead matter, some oil or something, chemicals were produced out of this dead matter, and then boom, spark, and suddenly it all came to life, and then it kept progressing and progressing until it reached mankind. Molecules, from little molecules all the way up to man. One big difference: evolution adds new material. And I was reading the other day on the woodpecker, and to study the anatomy of a woodpecker, you know, he beats his beak. I think they said something like 12 to 18,000 times per day, and he doesn't get a headache. You know, how did he beat himself and, I died. And the next one came along and beat himself. And they thought, okay, we got to do something about this because I'm getting this terrible headache. And so evolution figured out we have to do something to improve the situation and make it better. Evolution figured out, they used to say that, you know, dinosaurs came from the ocean. Now they're saying the fish came from the dinosaurs. They reversed. But you have to add new material. Evolution is moving upward. How many of you have heard of the second law of thermodynamics? It's a great big long word. Well, you've got it right there. Basically, the second law of thermodynamics is absolutely undisputed. It has been proven in every situation. There has never been found an exception. And the second law of thermodynamics says that everything left to itself deteriorates. You ladies, does your house just keep itself clean without you doing anything? Does your truck just repair itself when it breaks down? That's the law of thermodynamics. Everything will deteriorate. That's been proven beyond any question, beyond any doubt, and yet evolution says everything deteriorates except when evolution is taking place and everything just keeps getting better and better. Can you imagine your house building an extra bedroom on the side because it figures you're going to need it? It's just going to build itself. Well, that's as stupid as saying that a bird can figure out, we got to figure out some way to fly with these wings that we've got. Or with these things we've got. Maybe if we put wings on them. And so as we progress, we'll learn how to grow wings. And as we grow wings, then we can learn how to fly. That's as ridiculous as your house building an extra room on the side of it there. Whereas variation, people say, oh, y'all don't believe in, and variation can be, called evolution of a sort. How many of you like granny apples? Okay. How many of you like Red Delicious? You like any apple, don't you? Okay. I like Honey Crisp. That's my particularly favorite apple. But, whether it's a Granny's apple, Smith's apple, Red Delicious, Honey Crisp apple, or any other apple, what are they when it's all said and done? They're apples. An apple doesn't suddenly become a coconut. There is variation. Look at the human population. I'm looking at every one of us here. Every one of us are different. We're all different. But we're all human. How many, and I thought of Erica, how many kinds of horses are there? Oh, there's a lot. But you know what? Whether it be the bush, what's those big bush horses? Yeah, those. Whether it's those or the little miniature ponies that Erica raises, what's the one thing they all have in common? They're a horse. You cannot take a horse and breed it with a donkey. You can't take a horse and breed it with a dog. You can't take a horse and breed it with a bird. Now, you can have lots of variation among horses and dogs. Ken used to say back years ago, he had this chart, of the different dogs. And I don't remember what he started out with, but it's supposed to be one of the really, really super smart dogs they use for, drug sniffing and different things. And he would come on down and he would always say, at the end of the variation of dogs, start off with the smartest dog, end up with the dumbest dog, and he would always show a little poodle. Guess what kind of dog he got when he got a dog? He got a poodle, yes. But they're all dogs. You cannot breed an apple with a coconut. Now, years ago when I went to Honduras, if you like coconut and you buy it at Kroger's, don't ever get a real coconut off of a tree. Because the man that we were staying with, pastor of the church, raised coconuts. He took one down, cut it open. I drank the juice. He carved out. Oh, that is so different than anything Kroger sells. Can you imagine crossing a coconut with an acorn? By the way, did you all know bananas grow up, not down? I didn't know that till we got there, and it's like, how come those bananas are all going the wrong direction? But no matter what you do, you cannot cross plants, one plant with another. You can't cross a coconut tree with an apple tree. Now you can do all kinds of things to get different apples. You can do all kinds of things to get, different types of fruit, but it's still going to be after its kind. There's a lot of different kinds of plants and animals. Man can graft plants together. My favorite thing that science has done, seedless watermelon. That was got to be the greatest thing they've ever invented. I grew up spitting out the seeds where you would get a mouthful of seeds and see who could spit the seeds the farthest. You never did that? oh man, you haven't lived. But we would sit on the porch, eat the watermelon, get all the seeds over on one side, and then see who could spit the seeds the farthest, until you accidentally bit down on one. And yeah, I'm thankful that they manipulated the watermelon so that it's basically seedless, but it's still a watermelon. You don't like watermelon? You don't like the seedless? Oh, you do, you like, so do I. Good boy, good boy. You've done something right. She likes the seedless, okay. You can't cross, for example, a walnut tree with a rose. Can't do it. God said, after their kind. What Charles Darwin did is he went to those islands where he went, and he found all kinds of different colors and shapes, and I forget the specific animal, but they were, do what? Was it a bird? Oh, I thought it was in the water. Whatever. He saw all these different colors and sizes. Says, oh, they're all different types of animals. No, they were all birds. And yes, we do have some adaptability. When we lived up in close to just north of Dayton, it would get, I remember one winter, it got down to 20 below zero. And the wind chill was like 30 or 40 below zero. That was cold. But we adapted somewhat. We moved to Texas. Their idea of super cold winter, super freezing winter, was 60 degrees. The average temperature was between 90 and 100. The humidity was always in the mid to upper 90s. We didn't adapt completely, but we did get used to it a little bit. My wife says she never did, but you know, our bodies can adapt. We can make changes. Birds, and if I were to look at all the specifics, some birds have a long beak because they reach into the flower and suck out the nectar. So they developed a longer beak, but it's still the bird. It didn't change into a squirrel. You know, it didn't change into something else. When God said, after its kind, he meant after its kind. Roses. I didn't know this for a long time. Do you know different colored roses stand for different things? Do you know on Mother's Day, a white rose means my mother is deceased? Or is it red that means my mother is deceased? Yeah, that's what I would guess, yeah. You can have all colors, shapes. You can have a dozen colors in roses, but they still reproduce after its kind. So when they come up and say, well, science has invented life in a test tube. No, they didn't. How do you know? Because the Bible said everything reproduces after its kind. Animals, the same thing. Already covered that one. If our worldview starts with God, then it won't be shaken when science says we have found a cross, we have found a missing link between a human and an ape. We found the missing link. No, you didn't. Because God said we only reproduce after our kind. Days and nights. I go through this very quickly. We looked at the day-age theory, where each day in Genesis 1, each day really represents 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000 years. The gap theory briefly says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Then there was a gap of millions of years, and then God saw that the earth was without form and void. And they tried to use the word day to prove their point. It is true that the word day, even in English, can have many different definitions. If I were to say, and I love to tell young kids this, and they think I am absolutely crazy. In my grandparents' day, they had the old ringer phone. Did y'all ever have a ringer phone? You know, long, short, long, short, short, long. You know, and you know, instead of 5551212, you would be long, long, short, short, long. So instead of memorizing numbers, you would memorize, you know, the longs and shorts, and that's how you would call somebody. You know, you would pick up the receiver, put it to your ear, and then this microphone came out, and you would go ring, 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 and then you would wait for them to pick up on the other end. And then after they picked up, everybody in the whole community picked up. And that was the beginning of the gossip line. It was a party line, but everybody on that party line picked up to listen to what was being said. So you had to be really careful. So in my grandparents' day, and my grandparents literally had that type of phone. Am I talking about one specific day, or am I talking about a period of time? During the days of the Civil War, am I talking about one specific day, or am I talking about a span of time? It can be long. It can be very short. You know, his day's coming. His day will come. It's a reference to not a specific day, but it's in reference to the point that he will eventually get caught. It can refer to a definite day. I was born on November 22nd, 1951. Was I born over 1,000,000 years? Was I born over 1,000 years? Or was I born on one very specific date? Well, I think the answer is I was born on Thanksgiving morning. I was the only turkey my parents could afford, so I was a turkey baby. Labor Day this year was September 2nd. That means it could be anywhere from June the 1st through October the 31st. No, it's a very specific date. It can be very vague or it can be very specific. In English, we understand today is the 4th day of the week. We understand, I'm talking about a literal day. Today is the 4th day of the week. I'm not talking about 1,000,000 years. I'm not talking about a month. I'm talking about a very specific day. English is one of the hardest languages to learn because we do have so many idiosyncrasies in our language. Hebrew is very definite, very definite. You know, it talks about Abraham's day. You know, Jesus said, Abraham longed to see my day, looking way ahead. So the Hebrew has same ideas that we have. But the Hebrew also has ways, and I made sure I put it very extremely, definitely, with no exception. This is what I mean. Anytime the Hebrew uses a number, like this is day 1, this is day 2, this is the 3rd day. If I were to say this is the first day of school, you would know exactly what I meant, wouldn't you? First day of school means first day of school, not 1,000,000 years of school, not, 1,000 years. So when you see a number, first day, it's referring to a particular day. The Hebrew also has a phrase that's called evening and morning. Anytime you see evening and morning in the Bible, it always refers to a 24-hour day. In the Bible, you see in the evening and the morning, it's referring to a literal 24-hour day. And when it puts both of them together, this is the first day of the week that consists of Monday night and all day Tuesday. Their midnight starts at 6 p.m. This is the first day of the week that starts Monday night and goes through Tuesday. In biblical language, that is the plainest, most absolute form of we are talking about one literal 24-hour day. And in chapter 1, the evening and the morning were the first day. The evening and the morning were the second day. In other words, there is nothing God could have said to make it any plainer. I'm talking a literal 24-hour day. There's no room for a gap. There's no room for millions of years. First day, second day, third day, evening, morning. Always refers to a literal 24-hour day. Now, we're looking at Genesis and the basis of our worldview. It starts with, in the beginning, God. In the beginning, God. Are you going to trust something that is never in 6,000 years, never been proven false? Or you're going to trust in something that changes year by year by year? Every year almost, they have to come out with new science books because the information in the old science books have now been proven false, and we have to come out with a new book to cover the new theories that we have. As Christians, we stand and fall on in the beginning, God. The moment you step back from that, you're on your way down, and the world already has you by the throat, dragging you down to the very bottom. All right.